questions before I get started? Okay. So I guess I'll do my intro now after that little ramble.
Well, hold it a second.
Yeah.
Are you saying you're encouraging us to focus and simplify and have a speciality? That's sort of what I heard between the lines.
Yes. So based on this earlier conversation with Jordan, you're going to hate what I have to say today about specializing. But what I'm saying is getting clear, not on, let me give an example to highlight, and hopefully this can lead us in a direction. If I worked at Starbucks and there were aspects of that I liked, but I wasn't clear on what it was that I liked, I might just start looking to work at other coffee companies. But if I actually dig into like, what was it about working at Starbucks that I liked? It was pouring the coffee beans into a new machine because I really liked the smell of the coffee beans. Okay. But maybe it's not even really about the coffee beans. It's about the fact that I like being somewhere that smells good, that taps into my senses, or a sense that isn't typically tapped into. That's the underlying theme of what's happening. So now that I've uncovered that, I can go and start looking for opportunities that allow me to tap into my sense of smell, for instance, rather than looking for other coffee companies, because it's not actually putting me in the direction of what's going to make me happy or satisfied or fulfilled. And so when I say specialize, I don't mean as specific as like a coffee company, but I mean getting clear on the underlying theme and pattern of what it is that you want. And I'm going to talk about what it is that you want in this context of the 3 pillars that I'm going to introduce in a couple minutes. Does that make sense so far?
Sure. Yeah, I think
to me, that's great. Super.
Okay. And I will tack on this idea of specialization, because before a couple people joined in, I know, Jordan was sharing that he has all these different skills, which is amazing. But sometimes when we're positioning ourselves as a generalist, like we're good at all these things, it's hard to actually find opportunities, which can be really frustrating because it's like, I have all these things I'm really good at. Like, I think I could at least get hired for one of them. But if you think about even this group that you're in today, if this meetup group was titled, "We help you live a better life," would you have joined the group?
I mean, I definitely would have. I'm trying to do that in a bunch of different other aspects of my life. So that would have rang with me, frankly.
Really? If it was just like, "We help you live better"?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. So for at least myself, what I was interested in about this group is that it specified the career search process. That's what brought me into it. And so I think at least some of the time, the specificity of communicating what we actually provide can help us more easily find a match that's right for us. And so especially in the job search process, if we can get specific around not only like what skills we have, but what it is we actually enjoy, finding that intersection, it allows us to narrow that a little bit more. And I'll get into that more. And Jordan, I totally am open to you calling me out if any of it doesn't feel aligned for you. So I'll get into it because I know we're a bit late here, and feel free to ask questions at all as I'm going through this. Okay. So how I got to doing this work, to doing executive coaching work, is because I myself was in work that was really not fulfilling and not rewarding. And I realized that I was spending a lot of time doing something that didn't make me happy. And so many of us, most of us, spend most of our lives doing something that doesn't actually make us happy, which feels like a waste of our time in my opinion. This is really what drove me to want to help people figure out what it is that's actually going to make them happy in their work and thus in their life, because we spend so much time working. And so now what I try to do is help people who are maybe feeling lost, like they're driven to figure it out, but they're feeling lost, or not really sure how to position themselves to find what's going to feel good for them. And trying to help with this like demotivating sense of the job search process that can happen when we feel like we're just like trying so hard and putting so much energy and time to something and it's just not clicking. I really want to help people and work with them to make that click happen. So the reason I call this the antidote to aimless job searching and career burnout is because there's kind of two camps of people that at least I'm sensing so far in this group. Is either you're in something that you don't want to be in, or you are not currently employed and you really want to find a job as soon as possible. And so for those of you that are maybe in something that's not totally fit in the bill, and not totally satisfying, or you just want to shift, a lot of what I've seen is that we are experiencing dissatisfaction or burnout in the work that we're currently in because we don't feel like there's another option, or we don't know how to figure out what those other options are. Sometimes it's feeling like it's not the right time to make a change, even though there's never going to feel like a right time to make a change, because there's never a good time to uproot your life and change your whole routine. Sometimes we don't want to feel like we wasted all this time down a certain career path, and then to have to pivot feels like all those years go to waste. When really, like, what about the rest of your life? Would that be a waste if you didn't end up doing the thing that did feel aligned? Not knowing where to start in the process can be really discouraging, and finally feeling like you don't necessarily have something really specifically unique or special to offer, because maybe the field you're interested in seems like it's super diluted or overcrowded, and you don't know like what you bring to the table. So the truth about that is that you each have something very unique to bring to the table, because you are factually each a unique combination of genes and experiences. So inherently, you each have something special to offer. If you are in between jobs right now, this is really your opportunity to take the next steps with intention so that you set yourself up for success and don't fall back into this trap of searching aimlessly and feeling burnt out by the process. So for anyone that's feeling really frustrated right now, or just burnt out or demotivated, my first words of wisdom are to take a breath, take a break for a moment. Just let your mind rest before you go attacking it again. Because if you're going into this with your bucket like a quarter of the way full, it's not going to be as effective and you're going to hate it. You're going to keep feeling super frustrated. So take whatever breather you need. And when you're ready, come back with some real fire and intention and what it is that you're looking for. What it is that I found in working with clients from all different career stages, ages, industries, is that there's three main things that will contribute to you feeling satisfied and fulfilled in your work. And if you get clear about these things, you also position yourself to get hired for the right roles much more easily. The first piece of that is your identity, what I call the who of your career map. And I'm going to get into each of these and have us play around with some exercises together. The second is your interests, the what of your career map. And the third piece is your impact, which is the why of your career map. The identity piece, when that is in tune with your work, you feel like the full range of who you are is able to be expressed and tapped into, both from a personality perspective and a skill set perspective. You feel like you don't have important skills that are lying dormant. Number two, your interests. You feel engaged in the content that you are working with, like genuinely interested and curious to keep learning more. And finally, the impact piece. That doesn't necessarily mean like you feel like you're saving the entire world, but you feel like the energy you're putting in towards your work is for something that genuinely matters to you in some way. And all of us have different interests and curiosities and skill sets and ways of wanting to make an impact or things that feel meaningful to us. So the key here is getting really clear on what it is for you that's going to be most meaningful. For the identity piece, I think in this job search process, like we often feel like we have to fit ourselves into a box of a job description or a role. We have to play the part of the role that we are interviewing for. The thing is, if you feel like you have to fit yourself into a job description, there's a good chance you're already setting yourself up for a role that's not going to be totally aligned. It can be really helpful to shift your focus on what you already have experience in to what it is that you're actually naturally good at. I think we can get really attached to this idea of I already worked in this field, I've already done this thing, I have built a skill set in this area. But if that skill set doesn't also align with what it is that you've always naturally been good at, I mean, like since childhood, there are aspects of yourself that make you unique, that you've naturally been good at, that probably your family could identify, friends could identify. If that isn't aligned in your work, you're going to feel like your skills are not being totally utilized. You're going to feel like you're not reaching the full range of your potential in your work. So there's both this skill set piece, and then there's also the personality piece of like what makes you you, what makes you different, what makes you unique, what are those little quirks that come out, the things that maybe we feel like we need to hide in an interview process or the job search process, like the things that we feel like, oh, that's not professional, so I'm not going to bring that to the job search space. These are actually the things that make you you, and the more you can be, the more aligned role that you're going to find that really makes you happy. And so I'll share an example to hopefully highlight that. Like being silly and bringing humor into my work is a huge part of who I am. And if I can't be that way at all in a certain role that I'm looking for, I know that it's not going to be totally aligned. And you can sense that through the interview process. So I want to give you all a moment, since I've been talking for a while, to take a minute and think about what are a few things that you've always been good at. This is not specific to the work you've already done. This is like at age 10, what were you good at? What would your family or what would your friends say about you? And once you've taken a minute to think and write down, I would love to hear some thoughts either in the chat box or out loud if you feel comfortable unmuting yourself.
For me, one of the things that I've always been good at is what I don't have a better word for is the little stuff. I'm a super considerate person, but I'm also like really detail oriented. I've been painting miniatures since I was like 13, so I'm good at like little tiny things. Like my background's blurred, but I got really into painting miniatures at a young age, and I've been doing it for like more than half my life at this point. And so it's just like little like artsy but detail oriented stuff has been my jam for a long time.
I love that. See, so The painting piece might be like a version of the expression of the fact that you're detail oriented, and that detail oriented nature could probably show up in so many different ways. And so based on the job, like you can position your ability to be detail oriented towards that role and how it specifically is expressed there. And something else you shared, Jordan, earlier, which I'm wondering if there's a relationship here, is you said that you're good at making operations more efficient. I imagine there's a relationship between your ability to be detail oriented and that as well. Do you see that?
Yeah, definitely. I tend to be really good at getting down to brass tacks on like what's actually what do we actually need to do to accomplish the thing that we're trying to do versus what are superfluous steps or superfluous middlemen in whatever operation is going on. I've been working really hard on not doing that in a way that causes friction. I'm from New York originally, so I can be kind of blunt, but working on being a little more tactful and saying, well, do we really need this person? Does this person or this operation really need to happen? Because I feel like if we did it this way, we would be able to save X amount of money based on whatever, and it would probably make our process 15% more efficient.
Yeah. It's
So,
that's such an incredible skill, one I'm terrible at, by the way. So we need you in this world sharing that skill. And I think like the better you can get at like communicating exactly what that is and positioning it for jobs, like what I'll tack on here, and this will be the next pillar, is are you actually interested in creating efficiencies? You can be good at something, but you might not be interested in the thing you're good at.
Yeah,
So,
that's it's something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. I've been a problem solver my whole life, both in my personal and professional life. Like I've had a lot of I have quite an interesting backstory, as it were, and so I've had to solve a lot of problems on the fly that most people haven't ever even had to deal with, like figuring out how to be employed when I'm homeless. That was an interesting problem to solve, and stuff like that. Like I've had a bunch of stuff that I've had to solve, and I feel like it's a really, really big strength of mine.
so
yeah.
I'm going to interject something there, Jordan. You said problem solver. And I used to have that world-class problem solver on my resume. And I was advised by some of the top to pull that because it's emotionally accusatory to companies. Might I suggest you are a world-class challenge solver?
Ooh, I like that phrase.
All are. Okay, and the reason that's important and critical is that in language like we're using here, I can even turn off my screen so I don't have gestures. The message sent is the message received. So even right now in the presentation, what are you naturally good at doing? And then she talked about the next phase. And so that good at may not be enjoy, may not be like, but good at. I'm reminded of some tests I took as a kid, and I was the techno nerd in the class. We're talking like 7th grade, and the teacher said, guess what you scored highest at? And I said, math. She said, no. And I said, science. And she said, no. She said, it was answering word problems. And I went, ugh, I hate word problems. Well, welcome to the world. The world is people and word problems.
Yeah,
So we're
totally hear
living
that.
that right now on this slide. You see, in developing the parallel of who you are, what are you naturally good at? It's a key concept. And if we don't learn something new, if we don't grow from this presentation, then why even listen to the presentation? See, just to have something to do. So yeah, I'm not gonna rock the boat. This is a great ride. Thank you. Congratulations to the presenter and to you, speaker, and to everybody here.
Thanks, Gordon. Don, did you have something you want to say?
I just want to let you get back to the presentation.
Sure. All right. So I want to just peep in the chat box for anyone else that shared. I see Jerry wrote, you were good at puzzle solving, math building, model towns. So also this element of problem solving. But I think also like problem solving can be such a general statement. Like I problem solve, but it relates to people and people relations. Give me information, give me data, give me like operational like organization, and I will not do well. I do not understand how those pieces fit together. And so getting even clear about like what being a problem solver applies to for you can be super helpful in positioning yourself for the right positions. And also getting clear here, what I'm seeing come up is like a difference between being good at working with information and data and systems versus working with people. These are two very different capabilities, both super important. But you want to get clear on like what are yours specifically. Because if you're saying in a resume, I'm like my top skill is working with people, but also my top skill is like operational efficiencies, it's going to be really confusing for someone who's looking to hire you. So you want to get clear on like what is it that you're really best at and enjoy most, and finding that intersection, which I'll talk about in this next slide here.
Well, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, of course. Number two, and this is probably what we spend most of our time talking about, is like, what are we interested in? This is what we're told in school to focus on. Pick a topic to study, and then like hopefully that becomes your career. The thing is that we have a lot of interests often, and our interests can shift over time. So where our natural skill sets and our personality tends to be pretty stable over the course of our life, our interests are always evolving. And so it's really important to keep tuning back into like, what am I feeling excited about right now? What do I end up doing in my free time? What do I spend my time learning about? If you read, if you listen to podcasts, you watch movies, what is the content of those pieces of consumption? And what is that saying about you and what it is that you're interested in? So like we were saying before, finding that intersection of both what you're good at and what you're interested in. I'm really interested in music. I have zero musical ability. Probably not a worthwhile career path to pursue. So you want to get clear for yourself, like what is this intersection that's happening? So maybe starting either with the skills or the interests, and then where's some overlap? So I'll give you all a moment to think and share in the chat, or you can unmute yourself as well. What are some of the things that you genuinely enjoy learning about? Like day in, day out, you can learn about it forever.
Okay, if I can jump in here, I think an area that you are interested in, but you don't necessarily have any skill in. Well, we all began in this world without the ability to walk or talk, yet we now can walk or talk. And that began with our interest seeing other people who were much more mobile than we were, you know, lying on our tummies and not being able to move. We gained an interest. Hey, look, that person can do something that I cannot do. I have an interest in that. And I would say, as that relates to our career search or career evolution, that start with something that you're at least interested in, and then go about doing the hard work to gain the skills. So, and how this applies to me, I learned to play the guitar. I started out, you know, like most sixth graders, when you go in a band, and you know, I played trumpet and then cornet. Then I got braces. You cannot play a brass instrument with braces. There's one of two choices. You're going to wear the braces wax, and oh, by the way, this was in the late Neolithic period, you know, 40 years ago, when they didn't have Invisalign and all the other cool stuff. You either play with the braces wax and destroy your embouchure and spit all over everyone, or you don't wear the braces wax and you shred the inside of your lips and end up talking like Thabit Albert Albert the Rebus to the baby. It's horrible. Okay. And then you just spit on over, you know, anyway. So because I had had parents who wanted me to have straight teeth. They got the braces. They destroyed my, ambition to be the next Louis Armstrong, and yet wanted me to have musical skills. So I played the cello. Why? Because I could not make myself figure out how to strum with my right hand, play the frets with my left hand, and hear it. All of that was too complex. So I could at least look down and see what I'm doing. Now, it was devilishly hard to do three things at one time, playing frets, strumming, and hearing the music, and actually reading sheet music too. Very difficult to do, but I had an interest. Because I had an interest, I pushed myself and did the hard work to make my brain work in a way that it wouldn't normally want to work.
Yeah,
There.
it's a super, super good point, Ryan. And also props to you for putting in the energy to do that. I think
It also helps not having kids around. When you have little toddlers running around the house and you're worried about that, it was like every hour that I didn't have at work, I could choose to sit on my bum, watch TV, or browse around on the internet aimlessly for hours.
right.
Get the hell away from the tube. Get away from screens.
I think this
is the enemy of humanity.
there certainly is, we can choose to shift the order of that focus of, okay, what am I interested in? Well, let's see how I can build more skills around this. That's certainly an approach you can take. And there are things that you are more uniquely, naturally good at that others are not good at. Otherwise, why do we call a skill a skill? If everyone has the same ability to do something, is that a skill? And so, to your point about learning even how to walk or how to talk, do we consider those skills? And maybe we need to redefine then what a skill actually means. Because I would maybe say that those are like survival adaptations that we make. Unless someone has a disability that prevents them from being able to do something, everyone knows how to walk and how to talk. And so when you are able to actually fine tune what it is that you uniquely do better than some of the people around you, you're giving yourself a chance to be more successful in that thing in the long term for a career. And that's very separate than like choosing to build a skill in a hobby. So again, these are different perspectives and different approaches to the career search process. So you can kind of decide for yourself, like what feels good and what feels right for you and what's going to be helpful for where you're at in your search. The last piece I want to get to is this why piece. So let me flip to the last slide, and I want to hear some of your thoughts here as well. This is the final intersection, your skills, your interests, and the why of the actual work that you're doing. And so I like asking these two questions to dig a little deeper into that why. So one, if you could leave the world a little bit better than you found it, what would change? Sometimes shifting that to what makes you tick, like often the thing that most frustrates us is pointing us in a direction of something we really care about. That can also help us get to this why piece. And this isn't, again, like I said earlier, about feeling like we're saving the whole world, but it's about feeling like the role you play is personally meaningful. Like the result of the work that you're doing matters to you beyond getting a paycheck. So when I was working in New York City, before I transitioned into coaching and living in Colorado, I spent a majority of my time placing commercials for TV ads. I did not find this work meaningful. I found it super soul-sucking. And that was a hint to me of like what it is that I did or didn't care about. Sometimes it's easier to acknowledge what it is that bothers us, what problem it is that we'd want to solve. And so that experience led me to really care about helping people figure out what was actually going to be meaningful to them. Because it bothered me to know that so many of us walk around doing work that doesn't totally light us up. So what's a problem that you think about consistently? And I want you to think about this both on an individual level, like the individual role you would be taking on, and an organizational perspective. Because there's both the role you're doing, and does the purpose of that role actually matter to you? And then does the overall organization have a mission that you actually can get behind, that you can actually feel aligned with? Because if you're doing a role that feels good, but it's for an organization that you don't care about, that's going to start to feel draining. And the opposite can be true too. It's an organization that feels really aligned and you really like what they're all about, but the role itself is not something that you care about doing. That can also start to feel super frustrating and draining. So again, you're looking for this intersection. So I'll leave you here to think, sit and think, and then either share in the chat again or feel free to speak up. What's something that really matters to you? Like what small change would you want to make in the world if you could?
One of my overall life goals is to leave things better than I found them. I feel like that's kind of where my like whole efficiency angle on life comes from. And like I feel like the engineering world's a really great place to do that, because even if it's building houses, like there's a way to, like we can do it better than we're currently doing it. Or like I'm constantly bitching about how the roads in like the way that the roads are laid out in Boulder or Denver are totally nonsense, and they need to be more efficient or more sensical. Like
Right.
I literally can't get around Denver without GPS without getting lost. It's ridiculous.
I've got a bit of trivia for you there. Boulder City County has more city planners than Denver, which is why all the signs, bike lines. Sorry to interrupt.
Jordan, for you, like, again, we've had only a couple minutes with each other, but from what I know about you up until this point, I would not apply to jobs that don't talk about creating more efficiencies in some set, like whether they use that specific language or something slightly different than that. I would not focus your energy in something that's not about creating efficiencies in a system in some way, because that's clearly something you're really good at. It's something you naturally look for. It's something you're interested in. Like, I would never notice this about the roads, but we need people like you to focus on these things and notice these things. And so it's really important to get clear about that. If you haven't already made that a primary focus in your job search, if you're applying for things that don't mention that, stop wasting your time doing that.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've part of me, like I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm at this point, I feel like I'm just scattershotting things out to see what sticks to the wall because I'm out of ideas. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Sometimes we just need to like bring it back to our center. Okay, like what do we have to get at? What actually matters? And then the persistence of following up, like, okay, I actually opted for quality in this process rather than quantity. And I reached out to this job that actually I really freaking care about. I didn't just willy-nilly send out an application. Okay, let me find out who the hiring manager is. Let me find out who else is on this team. How can I connect with them on LinkedIn? How can I meet anyone who is related to this role and try to get my foot in the door? The persistence becomes much more motivating when it's around something that we really feel is truly aligned. When it's like a million applications are out in the air, we don't have the time and the energy to be persistent in all those directions. So yeah, I think you clearly have a great level of awareness about yourself in all of these aspects. And I think like getting clear on communicating that and really just searching for jobs that align with that is going to help you be more effective and successful in the long term.
So your three pillars here for everybody in the room. It is really important if you can actually come up with sentences, not just bulleted points, at least bulleted points, but sentences for each of these three. Because what they really are they're your introduction and your elevator speech and the focus of your resume. So yeah, if you want to email me and we'll swap resumes and you can see format changes and differences in all of these points. you'd want to reflect near the top of the bulleted points in a resume, so that somebody who's just got time to glance at your resume gets an idea of who you are really quick. I mean, I think these are great 3 pillars.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And I just want to close out and by saying, hopefully in the aim of not overwhelming you too much, is that this is not about finding the perfect intersection necessarily right here, right now, but it's a process of narrowing and fine tuning and finding opportunities that allow us to further grow into this intersection. So maybe the next step is finding something that really aligns with our why and something we're interested in, but the role itself isn't necessarily perfect to who we are yet, but it's a step in the right direction. We just want to make sure you're on the right train to getting to the place that feels aligned, and not taking a completely wrong path out of a sense of desperation for needing a job. DM, do you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah, go for
How
it.
can I email my resume for review?
I do not do resume reviews myself, but I have a partner who I can definitely share with. Is there anyone else here who does resume reviews?
The Boulder workforce.
Okay. Yeah.
And
I
I'll
just
throw out
put
there,
my email in the chat. It was in the
Okay.
sign-up sheet, but
yeah,
it's in the chat
Gordon,
too.
Gordon was saying that, but if anyone wants to email, this is Mark Lauterbach, if anyone wants to email me your resume, I'm more than happy to look at it, because I'm a job search coach and I co-lead LongSpeakNet, and I'll give you feedback because I've helped over 1,000 people succeed in their job searches. And so I'll definitely do that. Ariel, could I make a couple points?
Yeah, sure.
Number one, knowing your why is really, really important. But I'd like to take one step back, because there's 3 levels of, do you need just a job? That's fine. People need a job. Do you have a career, like you want to advance in something, or do you have a calling, which is you found something that gives you great joy? And so for me, I always had a career in supply chain and then I got an opportunity to buy, my company got bought and sold by private equity. So I left industry and I decided to start my own supply chain consulting business. And I bolted on a recruiting business, which helped me figure out I like to help people with their careers, because I planned my career. Only 3 people in the world I've met who have done that besides myself. I planned my whole career. And so I really, enjoyed being a recruiter, but I knew we only help 1% of people. So I found a calling to help people with their job search, which is really hard. And I get to change people's lives now. So I found a calling, which I didn't start out with. Most people will never get to a calling, and that's okay. Because if you have a good career, it's about what you do outside of work too, not what you do inside of work. But there are 3 levels. And there's people I talk to that say, I just want a job. I'm getting to retirement. That's fine. But career and calling is more about what Ariel's talking about. But understanding your why is really important. And Simon Sinek talks a lot about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah,
And
this is such a great message. And this is such a great time to think about it when you have time. Because once you're back at work, you won't be thinking about this. You'll be thinking about the issues and problems of the company or whatever you're doing.
yeah, I really appreciate that lens on this. This is the deeper work. This isn't the easy next step to a job. But this is the easier step to having a long-term job that fulfills you and that meets all of your needs. And so this is doing like the hard work on the back end. What's the saying? On the front end to get the word on the other side. So for those of you that do really want to go into the process with more intentionality, so that you don't feel like you're going through that like aimless searching process and quickly either getting burned out by the search process, or burned out by the job itself because it's not really aligned with what you want. Happy to offer some separate one-on-one support and time to help you get clear on like what it is that actually matters to you, so you can position yourself that way. And I think like what can be really helpful here too is like, I can help you get clear on what it is you want to share. And someone like Mark can also help you get really clear on how to position that specifically on a resume or on an application so that you get considered and looked at. So if anyone is interested in getting that deeper level support so that you go into the job search process with more clarity and confidence, I'll share a link here for a complimentary consultation with me, and I'm happy to kind of give you some more individualized attention and work it through. And I'll open up for any questions if we have the time, or Trent, I'm not sure how you want to move things along now.
Okay, well, yeah, well, certainly, yeah. If anyone has any questions for Ariel, let's, yeah, give people the opportunity to ask those. Does anyone have questions?
Ariel, I would like to start by saying thank you. I mean, that was so helpful. It's truly so important to do that upfront work, right? So that you get you're really on the path that you want to be. So I'm so glad that I got to meet you, and that you came to speak on this point, because sometimes you don't realize that the trouble that you're having has nothing to do with the mechanics of what it is that you're doing in that moment, and it really takes some really deeper reflection to understand where you're coming from. It's kind of like everything snowballs from that point on, and then everything falls into place. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. It's been a great presentation, and I'm really excited that you're helping people with this work.
Thank you. Thanks for that reflection. That's really, really sweet.
And Ariel, real quick, have you met Zach Mercurio, who wrote The Invisible Leader?
No, I haven't.
He's a CSU professor. This dovetails in what you're talking about. I'd be more than happy to introduce you to Zach. He's a friend of mine. But he's
Yeah.
done a lot of research on purpose, and it's really insightful. So I think you two should get together, and I'd love to make an introduction.
So Mark, your book is sort of hard to read. Could you type the title and the author into
sure,
the chat,
yeah.
maybe?
Yep, I'll do that.
'Cause
And
the gray just isn't coming through for me.
yeah, and we've had him speak, and he may, Don, has he spoke at BoulderNet?
I'm pretty sure not.
Yeah, he does. I'll write it here. He does a really masterful talk on purpose, but Ariel will be a good person for you to talk to.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
offering.
I'm more than happy to do that introduction.
Okay, any other comments or questions for Ariel? Okay.
Woohoo,
So
it was great. I couldn't unmute fast enough. Ariel, you rock. Fantastic. Woohoo, keep it up. Chit chat. And how long, Don, are we leaving the room open for everybody?
well, we still have a few more introductions. Like I said, I apologize for people. We haven't gotten to for suspending the intros. I just wanted to, I know some people needed to leave, but I wanted to get to Ariel's presentation. Yeah, so anyway.
Stop recording.
Oh, thanks, Don. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Ariel, I wanted to thank you so much for your time. This was really helpful. I'm currently filling out your call form.